Number 127, The Taboo.
The taboo. Also, dogmatism. The ancient fallacy of unilaterally declaring certain bedrock arguments, assumptions, dogmas, standpoints, or actions sacrosanct and not opened to discussion, or arbitrarily taking some emotional tones, logical standpoints, doctrines, or options off the table beforehand. Example, no, let's not discuss my sexuality. Don't bring my drinking into this. Or before we start, you need to know I won't allow you to play the race card or permit you to attack my arguments by claiming that's just what Hitler would say. Also applies to discounting or rejecting certain arguments, facts, and evidence, or even experiences out of hand because they're supposedly against the Bible or other sacred dogma. See also the a priori argument. This fallacy occasionally degenerates into a separate, distracting argument over who gets to define the parameters, tones, dogmas, and taboos of the main argument, though at this point, reasoned discourse most often breaks down and the entire affair becomes a naked argument ad baculum. See also MYOB, tone policing, and calling cards. Yeah. This one, this one, I'm I have not taken part, but I know I have. There are two instances in my mind, and I won't name the two people, but where like they would use this as a weapon. It was like they would play certain taboo. Um, they would like work with whatever like is not okay to say or not okay for people, not okay for people to talk about, and they'd use that to their advantage often. And it's like so as an example, like how do I put this? Find an example because I don't want to identify people in my life. Um, it'd be like, as an example, I've had people play on me while we're having a normal discussion, um, like just going having a logical argument, or where I'm trying, where in situations where I've been describing my experience and sharing my feelings or whatnot. Um, Somebody say something like, well, you know, um, you can't say that, or they would, you know what? Honestly, I'm having a really hard time finding an actual example for this. Yeah, I'm not able to actually craft the example. Part of it is because it's always really shocking when it happens. Like in both of the instances where this has happened, I have a hard time even fathoming the person's doing that. I'm like, how could you do that? So let me think more on it, but I'm aware of people using this in a way that's malicious, and for me, it brings up a lot of anger and frustration when I think about it.
Interesting. Yeah, I would love to hear an example because I, from how you're describing it, I'm curious if this is the fallacy that the examples are describing, or uh, I forgot that there was something you said that I'm like, oh, is that what this is? Um, okay, because you're describing like someone bringing up something that's like a shocking taboo subject and using that to their advantage,
No,
right?
it's like, so, I'll try to clarify what I'm talking about. Where it says, um, also applies to discounting or rejecting certain arguments, facts, and evidence, or even experiences out of hand because they're supposedly against the Bible or other sacred dogma. Uh, then maybe it's not correct. For me, that what I'm referring to is somebody who is rejecting, discounting or rejecting logical arguments, facts, or evidence because, and then discount it using a taboo subject that, like, by the rules of society, I'm not allowed to opine on. So as an example, like, it is given
Mm.
that white straight male, I'm a white straight male uh in the US, there's like I'm not allowed to have any opinions or commentary on what it's like to be a woman in the workplace. And so it's like if I example
Yes.
in a week, if we're looking at stats or numbers, and let's say that I, go and do really well in a particular week statistically, and then there's someone else in the office who or in the space who is not doing as well but is a female, and then they go, or they identify as a woman and they identify as a female, and they say, well, that's just because um, I'm not being treated the same because I'm a woman, something of that nature. In that moment, if I were to, like, there's a social norm in that situation that if I all of a sudden say, no, that's not actually what's happening, it's this and this and this and this, or that's you're not being treated differently because of your gender. If the person all of a sudden says to, like, in a very firm way, no, this is what's happening, it's like there's this unspoken rule that I can't actually, like, it's like it's wrong for me to communicate back or to prove evidence otherwise. So in that situation, like, that's what I'm referring to. I'm not sure if this is exact fallacy, but I've been in multiple
Yeah, I don't
situations where,
think
like,
yeah, I don't think that is this fallacy. I think what you're describing is number 83, no discussion. I think. It sounds really like one that we covered before. Um,
mm,
we've been doing this for almost 2 years now. So we're we might be forgetting for some of the fallacies by this point.
yeah,
Um, but the 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 thing with this one, 127, is I haven't heard of it as taboo, but I definitely heard it as dogmatism. This is just like it's just the fallacy of dogma. That's just like
oh,
you should believe it because um that is what is to be believed. It is the expectation that you believe this and you do not question this thing. The end. Like that's basically that is this fallacy. Is
got it.
believe it because believe it because.
Yeah, then what I'm referring to is completely different.
Yeah, so dogmatism, um this okay, let's see. Is there anything that I believe that I will not question? Um this is the thing that I try as best as possible to have the answer be no to. I want to be able to literally question everything. And uh I guess the only okay. Well, I guess the only dogmatic thinking that I could say is that I'm against dogma thinking. I just don't like I'm not convinced that it's a good thing. So I will question like everything. Um and just to like be uber sure. There are times I question the scientific method and I have to go back to the fundamentals of logic to rebuild that to like that the scientific method is a natural conclusion built upon basic logistic principles that that form what becomes the scientific method. But besides that, uh yeah, I really try to question everything as much as humanly possible. If something makes me uncomfortable, that uh or I guess if something used to make me uncomfortable about talking about, uh that is like the thing that I want to tackle now. And for a while it was while I worked at Vector, the dogmatism definitely was um this is the greatest job for college students and Cutco, the brand is the greatest product in human history. Um, those were like the main two dogma in Vector.
Yeah.
And I forced myself to believe that to get very good at the job.
Yep.
Um, and that was unquestionable. Yeah, that was those two things were not to be questioned there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's my experience with dogmatism.
No, that makes more sense. Yeah, super solid.
So I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on anything that you once believed or maybe even currently believe that you're not really open to discussion right now. Uh, and that's part of dogmatism. And by the way, I don't want to like what I shared was just my own personal beliefs. If you believe something but and have a dogmatic view about it, that thing could be true, but I would encourage that the thing can still be true without the dogmatism.
What's the difference
Whatever it
between
is you believe.
what's the
Oh,
difference
sorry.
between there being a subject you don't want to talk about because it like makes you feel uncomfortable to talk about and it feels private to talk about, so therefore like prefer not to talk about it because of the level of discomfort that it creates because it's like no, I would prefer not to talk about that because it's private and I don't want to talk about it versus like 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 writing something off as like yeah, like taboo and being like no, like in the fallacy because I feel like it's perfectly acceptable that if someone's like tell me about this thing and you're like I don't want to because it's something that I want to keep to myself. Like I think that's perfectly acceptable. But I guess we're not talking about things
Yeah.
are wrong. We're talking about if it's a fallacy or not. So is it a fallacy to protect your own privacy against like people wanting to know information you don't want them to know?
No, I don't think that that's what that is. Like if you well, okay. Um if
Like
you
here,
believe
so
something
as an example,
and
let's
go ahead.
not discuss my sexuality, but like what if the person doesn't want to talk about their sexuality? Like then is that what's I guess I'm trying to find the line between fallacy and like is that for someone to want to be protective of something they don't want to talk about, is that a fallacy altogether? Is that what it's claiming? Or is it where like I'm trying to find the line?
Yeah. I think this is an important uh discovery to make. What is the line here?
Yeah, what's the line
I
between saying like I don't want to talk about it because it makes me feel uncomfortable and that's my right to like to do that versus, is it like no, that's a taboo subject, so we don't talk about it? Like the subject of sexuality is something we don't talk about in this house or that we don't talk about like we as in all of humanity, like we don't talk about that. Is that more the fallacy?
it's not the latter thing, it's not that. So I know it's called the taboo, but it's not it doesn't really have to do with taboo. It's about like this is the fallacy of dogmatism. What this is describing is dogmatism. It's just like it's like calling something that you don't want to talk about the taboo subject.
Yeah.
But this isn't necessarily about taboo in society, if that makes sense. Um,
Okay.
yeah, dogmatism is more of the appropriate name for this fallacy. Um, that's what it's describing. Uh, but okay, so do you have the right to essentially remain silent? Of course. I think you do. You don't have to
But is
talk
that a,
about anything.
but is that a fallacy though? That's what I'm saying. Like, is what's being described here is like if you keep information to yourself that's fallacious?
Well, another way of thinking about it is if you're ever working with a client and they exhibit behavior of a subject that makes them really uncomfortable, that is like you're like interesting. Like why don't we explore that? Because your brain's been telling you, no, 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 I don't want to think about that. And it's like, well, let's follow it through. What happens if this thing does happen that you have trauma over? And then they eventually get to the root cause of it. Um, and so at least in that scenario, I would say that that probably is a fallacy. Somebody not intentionally not thinking about the things that they probably ought to think about, because maybe there's trauma related with it, or maybe they're more comfortable thinking this thing, and they would rather not had their beliefs be challenged because they're afraid of what could be the result on the other side. When I was in Vector, if I were to comment or challenge whether Cutco was the greatest product in the world or not, or Vector was the greatest job, um, that would negatively impact my performance as a district manager, and I wouldn't be able to uh, give people the amount of enthusiasm, genuine enthusiasm, that uh, they would need to be successful. And so at the time, that would hurt me to mentally explore. Um, and do I have the right to do that? I have the right to do that. You have the right to be wrong. You have the right to not explore those thoughts. Um, and I think that's fine. If you're in a comfortable place. My dad chooses to live in delusion because it makes him happy. And um, I don't think it's correct, but it's what he wants to do. And so, and he openly admits that. There's not too many people that like intentionally live in delusion and like announce it. But he is one of those people. Uh, so yeah, I would say that I guess that is the line that it also just remembering that like just because something is a fallacy doesn't necessarily make it good or bad. It's just not logical. So it is
Okay.
not logical to not explore uh the the belief that you hold sacred, just because you want to believe it or not believe it, or the other way around, the obverse. Um it is not logical. That doesn't necessarily mean that may or may not be the right thing for you to do. This isn't about right or wrong. This is about logic versus illogical. And
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Okay. So, okay, I'm understanding. So it's not saying again in this it's hard because the word like fallacy very close to the word false, which usually means wrong. So it's like
right.
it
And that's not what it is. It's not.
yeah,
Yeah, fallacy does not mean wrong. It means
not logically
it's a non
sound.
sequitur. It does not connect.
Yeah. So it sounds like then, because it says the ancient fallacy of unilaterally declaring certain bedrock arguments, assumptions, dogma, standpoints, or actions sacrosanct and not open to discussion, or arbitrarily taking some emotional tones, logical standpoints, doctrines, options off the table beforehand. So it's what it's like. It's saying like, hey, I think it's like subject matter is off the table, period, because subject matter is uncomfortable, period, or subject matter is not allowed to be talked about. So I think that does fall in line. What this is claiming then is that um, if there is something that someone doesn't want to talk about for whatever reason, and they say, I don't want to talk about it because whatever, like, no, we're not talking about that. That is a logical fallacy. Like, I think, but maybe because it's like, it says like they're just saying it's off the table, but I'm sure it probably means, it's funny. I'm sure that's hilarious. It probably is trying to also, how would I say this? Not probably or sure. I'm wondering if you say it's off the table, period, and you don't give explanation, that's a fallacy. But if you were to say it's off the table because it makes me feel uncomfortable and I don't want to talk about it right now, that actually wouldn't be logically fallacious. That's perfectly logical because the person is like they're saying here's the reason why. It's my comfortability level, it's my feelings, it's my emotions, and I am declaring that I don't want to talk about it because of where I'm at. But if they were to say, no, we don't talk about this subject because this subject is something we don't talk about, I think that's what this fallacy is saying.
Yeah. Um, we like to say that there's a time and place to talk about certain subjects, and that is, I think, very emotionally compliant and productive to do.
Yeah.
But on a purely logical standpoint, taking all emotion out of it. Again, not saying this is the right thing to do or anybody should do this,
Yeah.
but I think even in a brief period of let's suspend bringing the uh getting a conclusion on something when we could explore it now is still fallacious. But again, that doesn't mean that that is not productive to do. I think that there are plenty of cases where that is productive to do, but it is still a fallacy, if that makes sense.
Mm, that
Fallacy means that it does, like, one thing does not connect to the next thing. So
yeah,
this is all about
right.
suspending that connection. And
Right. But I think
yeah,
that the connection gets suspended when the person doesn't explain the reasoning behind saying we're taking this off the table. If they were to say
mhm.
we're taking it off the table because the subject itself is something we don't talk about, that to me sounds like that's what this is saying. But if I
Sure.
were,
This is getting a little abstract. If we could do a specific example, it can that would be able to help us.
uh, let me go back to the examples they have here. Um, so where it says, "Don't bring my drinking into this."
Okay.
So, and by the way, this is super normal in Midwest culture to not talk about how much everybody drinks. There's a lot of drinking, but don't talk about it, right? So it's like for me, like if we approach somebody who we were like, "Hey, I think you might be drinking more than you think you are," and the person says, "We don't talk about that." I think that's this fallacy.
Yeah.
But if we were to say, "Hey, I'd like to talk about your drinking. I think you're drinking more than you think you are," and the person says, "I totally hear that. I don't want to talk about it though, not right now, because that makes me very uncomfortable and I'd prefer not to talk about it right now." I think that's not logically fallacious because you're
No,
still
no. It is still fallacious, but it's productive. I think it's a good thing to do, but it's the same fallacy. You're just saying it nicer. You're saying the same thing nicely. It's the same logical formula, but one is more productive. And I think that there are plenty of fallacies on this list that we covered that we can recognize that it's a fallacy, but it's still good for us to do. And I think like, because if you want somebody to stop drinking, like, you can't just like attack them for it. Like, that's a very sensitive subject. And so yeah, you need patience for it. And the fallacy list's not about that at all. This does not give a fuck about feelings. It's the cold hard, not even facts, it's just like logic. It's just like, if you're not talking about it, then you're not talking about it. If you're suspending it, then you're still not talking about it until you eventually talk about it. But so that's all it's saying, is that it's still fallacious. Um,
so does
Not
logic
making a statement whether it's good or bad, but
and does
yeah.
logic then invalidate the this is a genuine question, not an accusatory question.
Mhm.
Does logic invalidate the uh does it invalidate the existence of emotions?
Does logic invalidate the existence of emotions?
Like
Um,
their role in the human experience?
does it invalidate? I don't know if invalidate, because then it's invalidate to me has the expression that it's like saying that the feelings are wrong. I don't No, I don't think
Oh,
so. I think a more appropriate way to say it
invalidate.
would be,
Invalidate makes it the null. It basically says this doesn't exist. This in the world of
oh,
logic, emotions are not accounted for in any way, shape. They don't hold any weight in any argument, is what invalidate means.
gotcha. Uh,
This is
I would
not
say almost. But to be more clear, I think what it's saying is, or I guess as far as logic goes, um, no amount of an emotion changes a logical conclusion. And so yeah, like the three laws of logic do not hinder on how much emotion is behind it. They will still be the same regardless of how much emotion there is.
Interesting.
Um, yeah. So, and again, the it this does not mean this is not the same thing as right or wrong, or you
Yeah,
should
yeah,
do this or you should not do this. This is
yeah.
just like in an argument, um, meaning someone trying to convey a message. Uh, if something is fallacious, that means that their premise does not necessarily support their conclusion. Their premise could be correct and their conclusion could be correct. But if it's fallacious, it means that the premise does not support the conclusion. Both could be correct or both could be wrong, or one could be correct and the other could be wrong. But a fallacy means that those two things do not connect. They are a non sequitur. So yeah, emotion does not play into it in that sense. Um, so, but again, uh, that doesn't mean emotion isn't incredibly important in human society and should be disregarded because that's not what this is. It's not what this is saying. I don't know if that helps at all, but like I don't want to frame it as like uh logic is telling you that you should disregard all of your emotion because like that's not what
I
it's
think in
saying.
this situation, I'm not connecting the dots on the I'm still not connecting the dots on the
Don't bring my drinking into this.
it's just yeah, because like
Like
I
waiting for the right time to talk about a subject. I still think it's good to do. It's just
yeah
like
no it's that I think for me I understand what is logically fallacious about we don't talk about this because we don't talk about it. That makes sense. That's that to me. I'm like, yep, fully 100%. That's a lot. That is fallacious. Complete. There's no validity to that.
okay. I
I
could be wrong. Is there any part of this that's like delaying the I could be wrong. Alan could be right on this one.
no.
Um
There's nothing on here. There's nothing on here about delaying it. It's doctor options are off the table beforehand. So it's like what it's. I think what this is talking about is not delay, but or like a renegotiation. I think it's saying like it's whatever subject or whatever thing is being talked about is now is off the table because the subject itself is like we're never going to talk about it because the subject itself is a taboo subject. Therefore, we don't talk about it. Is what I believe
okay.
it's saying.
Very well. I'm making up the delay. I was wrong. Thank you, Alan. Uh yeah, I made that shit up.
Because like to me it's like if a person it feels like it is logically sound that if somebody says this is my decision and here's why I'm making my decision like and it's like I guess like if we lived in a world where we were like yeah actually emotions are not a part are not a valid part of the human experience to consider then yeah, then it would be fallacious. But I'm like, but I think it's okay for someone to say, I don't want to talk about this or I don't want to talk about it right now because talking about it has me feel so uncomfortable that I don't like it. It brings me to a place where I'm unable to talk about it and I don't want to. Like that to me feels like that they're taking ownership, they're calling out their own emotional experience. I feel like that's not fallacious. It's just saying I don't want to and here's why versus we don't talk about that because it's not something we talk about. That to me feels like what this is
Yeah.
saying.
No, you're right. That makes
Yeah,
sense now. Thank
yeah,
you so much
I
for
know we're
fighting
fighting.
that.
Yeah, I just I don't know like because although emotions like they you know I know emotions aren't logical, not most of the time anyway, and it just doesn't feel right to be like oh citing emotional experiences, personal emotional experiences is fallacious. I'm like no, I don't think that's fallacious, but I could
Wait,
be
is it
wrong.
saying that?
No,
specifically?
that's what we were entertaining the
Oh,
possibility.
okay.
And we were entertaining the possibility of that.
Well, that was the taboo, also dogmatism. I think dogmatism is much better of a name than a lot of the names. They choose very weird names for a lot of these, and I'm like, that does not accurately describe this fallacy. Um, but yes, that's dogmatism.